focusing on educating the next generation, it's key for the project and for the country to change, basically, because you're educating the next generation, the next people that it's going to be leading the country, next business owners, and they will already know about Bitcoin. All these kids, I mean, the mind that they had in the beginning has changed, and they want to continue teaching. Now they are asking, how can we get involved? How can I teach? I want to teach the next year.
I love that. Love that.
Welcome, everyone, to the Bitcoin Country podcast. I'm your host, Jethro Toro, and this is a crossover with your familiar host here in the Bitcoin Beach studio, Mike Peterson.
Yeah, we're making Jethro take over tonight because we're filming at night. It's almost my bedtime, so I told him he's got to take the lead here.
Well, thank you for staying up and making the time for this, Mike. As always, it's such an honor recording with you and all the work you've done with Bitcoin Beach. And we are also honored to be joined by the two Salvadoran co-founders of Bitcoin Berlin. So we got Gerardo here.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. And Evelyn.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
So it is one thing to start a circular economy project. Many people have tried and a lot have actually failed, and it's quite another to actually keep it going too. So the Bitcoin Berlin project was started 2.5, almost 3 years ago, actually turning 3 this April, May. Yep. And so a lot has happened since the last time, you guys were on the Bitcoin Beach podcast in the early days, telling the early version of the story, but I figured it was time for an update. So first, we're going to get into the story of Bitcoin Beach, though, because that is where, the big bang of circular economies, as they call it, all started. So, Mike, could you tell us the history of Bitcoin Beach?
Yeah, the history of Bitcoin Beach really just started from wanting to help the community here in El Zonte, specifically the young people. Actually, not just El Zonte, also Punta Mongo. We kind of started the project in both those locations at the same time. And at that time in El Salvador's history, gangs pretty much controlled the majority of the country, including here in El Zonte. And so the goal was to give the young people a better path forward, to give them some hope, to encourage them to follow through on their education, to go to high school, to go on to university, to start pouring into their community. And so we were working in the community here. Jorge Valenzuela, who was like the very big part of getting this all going early days. And with the foundation of Hope House and all that. And then also Chimbera, or Ramon. There's a lot of people, most people know him by Chimbera, but his real name's Ramon. And they, grew up here in El Zonte. They, had lost numerous friends to the gangs, from either joining the gangs or being killed by the gangs. And so the goal was to provide hope for the kids. We talked about getting them to dream for the first time. Because when you would ask a kid, like, what is your dreams? They would just look at you with this, like, deer in the headlights, like they've never dreamed of anything. They were just always in survival mode. And so we started with educational initiatives. We were working with the local church, having youth groups with the young people, and starting to give them, jobs in the community. And in 2019, we had a donor come to us and say, hey, we want to support what you guys are doing there in El Zonte, but we want you to do it all in Bitcoin. We believe that actually using Bitcoin as money will help transform the community, to create a circular economy, to get people off the fiat standard. That a big part of what we were seeing in El Zonte was the result of the fiat world. We were seeing, the people here not being able to support their families, so they would go to the United States, oftentimes illegally, leave their kids behind to be watched by, aunts or uncles. The kids weren't really cared for a lot of times because the people they were left with were just in survival mode themselves. And so when the gangs came around, it was really attractive to the young people to join the gangs because it gave them this sense of belonging. It allowed them to make some income. And so then with the gangs there, you would see more businesses go under because the gangs were extorting them. So you had this, really cycle of violence, and it would just kind of feed on itself. And so we thought, hey, if we introduce Bitcoin to this, we break this kind of fiat mentality, we can actually see this cycle reversed. And so the idea was to start paying the kids and young people in small amounts of Bitcoin to clean the local river and the beach. We started doing stipends if they stayed in school and got decent grades. And, as part of that, then we onboarded the local businesses so that they could, the young people would have a place to be able to actually spend their Bitcoin. And the businesses were attracted to it because all of a sudden there was all this Bitcoin circulating, and, they realized got more customers if they were accepting Bitcoin. And then when COVID hit, it really supercharged things because nobody could work in the community. It was prohibited from working, and in El Zonte, like a lot of places in El Salvador, people don't have that much food stored up. Most of them buy their food daily a lot of times, and so it wasn't like they had these stocked kitchens and pantries that they could go for months, and so quickly people were starting to go hungry, and so we saw this as an opportunity to really show the people the value of Bitcoin, and we started doing distributions of Bitcoin to the majority of the families in the community. It was I'd say probably 90% of the families participated, where we were giving a chunk of sats to them every couple weeks, and it really allowed them to buy the bare minimum that they needed. It also allowed the local businesses to stay open, because in a lot of the communities, the business shut down because nobody had any money. And so it allowed food to continue to flow and commerce to continue to flow even during that time. But it also, because people had all this downtime, they weren't working, they didn't have anything to do, so they were able to actually learn about Bitcoin and kind of start to understand it. And it was also made it easy during COVID. There was restrictions on movement, so to have electronic payments for the first time made a huge difference to them. And so that was kind of where it all got its start. And then from there, we saw the interest just expand, all throughout El Salvador and now really throughout the world. We were working with about 100 different circular Bitcoin economies throughout the world now. We're just in Africa. We'll get into that more later, but we were just in Africa with a number of the projects there. And so it's exciting to see, and it's really amazing to see this. It came out of this little town of 3,000 people, Zonte, a place that, 6 years ago, hardly anybody outside the surfing world had ever even heard of before. And to see how what happened in this little village has kind of set this ripple effect across the world, and threatening governments now, and has the IMF all up in arms, and has caused all this consternation by the global elite. But we know that Bitcoin really levels the playing field for everybody, and gives the people who have been locked out of the current system equal opportunity. And we think it's really going to continue to revolutionize the world.
Yep. The little projects that upended the world's monetary order, as they say.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it is so beautiful how it started with this project of uplifting the community, helping people who were in a situation where that's pretty bleak, just giving them something to do, something productive, and then just uplifting an entire town and really inspiring the entire world. And it's interesting you highlighted how the COVID times, or when it really hit the next level. That's when a lot of Bitcoiners, including myself, Michael Saylor, many others, class of 2020, as they say, because that's also when they printed trillions of dollars.
Yep.
So the need became apparent for the store of value to many, but we were also seeing how medium of exchange adoption could actually really help people in a time when they needed it. So that's so beautiful to hear, and it's inspiring how it has inspired so many other circular economies around the world, including Bitcoin Berlin to Salvadoreños. So, and actually also, before we even get into the full story of Berlin, it also inspired the Bitcoin legal tender law in 2021, making El Salvador becoming the first country in the world to make Bitcoin legal tender. So I'd like to start the story there. Gerardo and Evelyn, where were you guys in 2019 when they started the Bitcoin Beach project in 2021? Like, when did you first hear about all of this Bitcoin activity in the country?
So back in 2019, Evelyn and I, we hadn't met yet. So we met back in 2020, and I met Evelyn, and she liked Bitcoin more than I do. I did back then. So that's what we're doing, and we're living together. That's how we met actually in COVID. We were roommates, and yeah, that's what we were doing back in 2019, 2020. Evelyn, I don't know if you want to say a little, tell a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean,
How you
I
remember?
think that I heard about Bitcoin in 2019, but I didn't really pay attention until 2021, actually. I knew a few stuff, but then when I knew it was something big, it was on 2021. And then we
Was
basically
that when
got
they announced the law, or before that, or
it, it
what was it
was
that made it?
it
You
was
realized that it was
no, it
big.
was when they, I mean, I remember that I heard about Bitcoin Beach because I remember all the news. And to me, it was like, what's going on? Why? Like, it was really curious. And now that I'm listening to you, it's like if somebody will have explained Bitcoin back then, I don't, or the project even, maybe I will have thought that they are crazy.
Right. No, it's a big merit. Like they started Bitcoin Beach in 2019. I mean, now there's a lot of circular economies because there's more spreading. It's easier. It's getting easier now. Bitcoin is cooler in 2019 than it was back in 2019. 2025 now that it was in 2019. So that's what we saw, and that's what we learned from Bitcoin Beach. All these things that Mike was just saying about people don't buying, living day to day survival mode, no saving or storing their food. That it was really easy to join to a gang and all of these things, and a lot of those insights are the kind of insights that we saw when we read the Bitcoin Beach white paper. And it's like, what's interesting, or what was interesting to me at least, is just, Mike, I don't know how long you've been living here in El Salvador, but you kind of, grasp the,
Yeah. So
Salvadorian.
we bought our house here in 2005, I believe.
yeah, so
And
you've been
yeah, it's
along
been
there.
a
That's
long
why you
time.
get like the
Yeah.
whole cultural thing here in El Salvador.
Yeah, I remember Gerardo and I being in front of the computer because we were just starting the project in Berlin, and we were like trying to figure it out and making like an executive plan for the project, and then we started the bubbles, and we were like, oh my God, Mike is like, if he thinks like a Salvadorian, he sees,
Yeah,
and yeah,
that's
it was really cool to see that you understood, and then you were saying that Roman was also involved in this, and yeah, so that combines really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then you guys were, of course, inspired by what had happened here, and you mentioned the circular economy white paper that you wrote. Actually, before we even get into the how you launched Berlin, could you talk a little bit about what you were thinking when you and Ramon decided to write the Bitcoin circular economy white paper?
Well, really, it was Roman's idea. He came to me and said, "Hey, we need to put out a Bitcoin Beach white paper because we had all these different projects coming to us and wanting help, wanting actually initially a lot of times they're like, hey, can you come and start this in Brazil? Can you come and start this, in South Africa?" And we're like, no, like we're focused on El Salvador. We're a small team, but you can start it. You're there. You have the community's trust already. You are in much better position to start something than us. If we come, we're coming as outsiders. And so we were working with a number of different projects, helping them think through how to start. And so Ron's like, hey, we need to actually put this on paper and give people, kind of a roadmap so that they know that this is not something that's super complicated. Even it's something it's definitely a lot of hard work and takes a lot of commitment, as I'm sure you guys can attest to, but it's not rocket science. Like it's not something that you have to be some tech wizard to be able to do, because I'm like the worst when it comes to tech. So I think that was kind of, Ramon kind of saw that. And at the time, I thought, yeah, that'd be great, but I didn't realize the impact that it would have. So I'm glad that he pushed to do that. And we had a lot of people that helped actually write that and put it together. And so that was kind of how that all came together.
It's a really good document. Like when you get together with people, from different circular economies, you always have that reference. Have you read that in Bubbles document? Have you read about that in the white paper? So yeah, a lot of circular economists, I'm sure, that have read that document
Yeah,
and got inspired by it. Yeah.
I'm sure. And Bitcoin Beach being the first really successful circular economy project, you guys kind of had to be the first through the gate and establish a lot of things that people had never done. So also the Bitcoin Beach wallet, Blink, and Lightning was still fairly new when you guys first started the project. It was,
when
what,
we
3
started,
years
we were
old?
doing everything on chain, and so it was kind of how everything came together. We the fees spiked really high, and so we were having problems. You know, a lot of the stores were upset because they're like, what is this? You got us into this, and now for us to send, a small amount was sometimes costing, as much as the transaction itself in fees. And so I kind of out of desperation, we moved to Lightning, and it was funny. If I would have listened to all the experts in the Bitcoin space, we never would have done it, because they're all like, no, Lightning's not, it's 2 years out, or it's never going to work. And I was like, I don't know. We're using it. It's working. Like, we're too dumb to know, but we're. So sometimes I think it's helpful to be, not too much of an expert in something, because I think the experts sometimes get caught up in, waiting till something's perfect. And we were like, hey, this is good enough for what we're doing. And it had some drawbacks, and it was custodial at first, and there was not any great non-custodial options, but they always had the option to go back to non-custodial on chain. And so for us, we felt like it was, it basically wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have been able to continue without, moving over to Lightning.
Yeah, and I'm glad you guys didn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, because, like, for example, 2020, when I first started learning about Bitcoin, and then, like, learning about the Lightning network and how, you need this separate network, and, like, on-chain is slow. You hear some of the FUD from shitcoiners just like, it's too slow, it's too old, whatever. But then hearing about the story of, there's this little town in El Salvador that's using Bitcoin as everyday money, and it's faster with, like, instantaneous with essentially zero fees. That, like, hearing about that in the real world, that made it more real. That strengthened my conviction. Like, okay, this isn't just funny magic internet money. So I'm glad you guys.
Well, and it was funny too to see. We've had tons of, like, big name Bitcoiners, and lots of people would know that did their first Lightning transaction in El Zonte. Like Peter McCormick, like, he had never done a Lightning transaction. He did one at Mama Rosa's to buy pupusas. Ray from I guess No One's, I guess now. I can't remember what originally. Originally from Paxful. He came, and he had never done Lightning transaction, and he did one here, and they rolled. And then they moved Paxful to Lightning. I think like a month later. It was even we had CZ was here, and we took him to show him how to buy coffee, and he's like, well, can I pay with BNB coin? We're like, no, we don't use any shit coins here. Like,
it's Bitcoin country.
So we had to buy his coffee for him and show him how to use it in Lightning, because I don't think he had done a Lightning transaction at that point, or at least he didn't have any on his wallet. So it's it's been pretty. It's been pretty remarkable to see how much this little town of El Zonte has actually catapulted the Lightning network and all the companies in the space. I think so many of them were able to raise funding because of what was happening here, and we saw this huge growth in the amount of Bitcoin that was locked up in the Lightning network, like, as things started to surge here. And so I really think that Lightning might be in a different place today than it is now if it wasn't for this project.
Yeah, I can definitely believe that. And that's why it's so important to have Bitcoiners not just hodling and staying anonymous. You need some people going out in the real world and actually using it. And I know there are some skeptics of circular economies and medium of exchange adoption, but like you just said, a lot of innovation has happened because people have seen this real world use case. So it's one of the many reasons why I think circular economies are so important.
Right.
And so back to the story of Berlin. So you guys were hearing about this. You heard about the legal tender law. Weren't quite sure what to think. But then when did you decide to get into Bitcoin and then start your own project?
So we like Bitcoin. We saw what happened with the legal tender, like Evelyn was saying. That's when we got serious about it, like really got into Bitcoin. And that's when we started to collaborate with different initiatives here in El Salvador. One of them was My First Bitcoin. They were looking for teachers or people that can help with anything. So we started to collaborate with them, and then we started to travel around the country, We wanted to move from San Salvador. We were living back in here in there in San Salvador, and we wanted to move to the mountain. We were tired of the city, so let's move to the mountain. And we knew that the minute we were gonna move to this place or this mountain town, we were gonna start to replicate what we saw here in El Zonte. So that's when we got serious about it, and you start studying like what's a circular economy. All right, so there's people that have done it, but not with Bitcoin. All right, so there's this one place in El Zonte, and it's actually here in El Salvador that had done it with Bitcoin. All right, so that's what we want to do. And then we read the white paper, and it's like, this is what we want to do. And as much and as you go learning about it, that's when you feel like this is what we want to do. So it became clear, soon that that's what we wanted to do.
Love it. And so that brings us to around, it was April or May 2023, right around there.
It
when you
was,
started the project.
April, May.
Okay.
And
And
we're really bad with dates, but
Yeah, I
Something like
remember
that.
that the first place that we onboarded from Berlin was the local high school cafe, like the shop there, because we back then were still giving some classes at the local high school, and we were giving some sats to the students, and so they could have somewhere to spend it. We onboarded the local store from the high school, so that was the first business. And up to this day, they continue accepting Bitcoin, and they even sell Bitcoin to the students.
yeah, they sell Bitcoin to the students. Because the students, they buy it, I don't know for what, online games. and they go like with a quarter or a dollar or whatever. You sell me $1 of Bitcoin, and she's selling
They got to
custom.
buy their skins for their
Right.
Free
Yeah, I
Fire.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go to the Bitcoin Center too to get some Bitcoin, like $1 or $2 of
from the
Bitcoin.
K1.
I love it. Yeah, and the
people-
K1 is so helpful too.
Right,
Just those
K1.
little like quarters, small change you can convert to
Yeah.
sats, and that's fun that they're using it for gaming too. And I also think it's an interesting parallel. The Bitcoin Beach project also started with sats for the children. One, the initiative keeping them out of the gangs, just community work, but then also paying them in sats. That's interesting that it starts with education in the next generation, kind of seeing the future for the future of money. So it started there. And so you onboarded the school, you onboarded the merchant at the school, and then what happened there?
And then we started to onboard some of the merchants. We were not living there yet, but we were already working there. So we started to onboard businesses, and we started to talk to people in Berlin. So we were visiting businesses with local people. And I remember that the first businesses that we onboarded, it was friends and family from the students. So it was really cool because after the classes, we were like on a mission with the students, with some of them, and with the uniform. And we were walking the streets of Berlin, and they were like, "Oh, let's go to this place. Let's go to this place." So those were the first ones that we were able to onboard because we were with the kids and with family. And then we met some other people, and it was like a snowball effect because one person got us to another person. And up to today, we have around 170 or more because there's even businesses that I didn't know that they were accepting Bitcoin. And I'm just learning about it. So there's a lot of people that we don't even know that they accept Bitcoin in Berlin.
Wow. Yeah, just the ripple effects. Once you plant those seeds, the network effect just grows and grows. And actually backing up just a little bit, I know you guys had been to several towns. You were already thinking of starting a circular economy. Part of why you settled in Berlin was the community, right?
Yeah. So people there, like Evelyn was saying, we went to the local high school. The kids were like really excited because we had them for 8-10 weeks to teach them about Bitcoin once a week. So we became friends. They were introducing to other people in the town that had businesses. That's how we started it. We already had the idea that that's what we wanted to do. And then when you meet another local and this local takes you to another one. And that's pretty much how we started it. Then the challenge was to, all right, so they already know how to accept Bitcoin. How do we spend Bitcoin? How do we inject Bitcoin, to these businesses? So I remember when we had around 15, 18 businesses, something like that. We opened the Twitter account, the Bitcoin Berlin Twitter account, and we started to post, hey, look, this people is accepting Bitcoin in this other place and this other. And again, the challenge was that it was really far. I mean, Berlin is far from here. I just drive from there. It was 4 hours to the beach, And we had a few people telling us actually exactly that. why Berlin? Why all the way here? It's too far from the airport, from the city, from Bitcoin Beach. So why are you doing it there? How are you gonna bring people to inject Bitcoin here? And we knew that was going to be one of the challenges we had there.
But it worked, and you decided to go forward because of the community, because you met local leaders who were interested and engaged, and that helped you take things to the next level. So that's when you create the Twitter account, and then that's when you decide to create the Bitcoin Center as well.
Yeah, this is not the Bitcoin, the first Bitcoin Center. This is the third Bitcoin Center we had in Berlin. First one, it was a shared space with Cyber Cafe. It was, I don't know, it was really small, and we were sharing it. We were sharing the space, and it didn't work. I mean, it was too small and too crowded. It didn't work. So we stayed there for maybe 2 weeks, and then we decided to move to another place. It was the second place. We had that place for about 4 months. We started, the Monday meetings. We had the Monday meetings before, but officially in a place, because there's some picture. I don't know if we had that one on the garage that we were using. We were using a garage before the Bitcoin Center, and this is the third one. That's where people. This is a Monday meeting. People come to the Bitcoin Center every Monday, 6:30, and we start talking about mostly Bitcoin, not only Bitcoin, because we talk about some other things, but it's mostly Bitcoin. We've been learning along with the community the easiest way to introduce Bitcoin, because we've been doing these Monday meetings for over 2 years now. So we've been learning how to introduce Bitcoin to people. So yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, and I remember, so I showed up in Berlin October 2023. I'd been living here in El Zonte for the first 2 months. I moved to El Salvador I was interested in growing the Bitcoin economy, participating. So, of course, like the Mecca, El Zonte, you got to come here first. It's the place everyone knows. But then I hear about this new project, and Berlin was still just a few months old. Charlie came down for one of the farmers markets and told me about it. And so then I arrived October. That was in the second Bitcoin Center. Was the first picture we showed. You had just started the meetings, the Monday meetings then, I guess.
No.
No, we had them before, almost since the beginning, but they were not Bitcoin meetings. Like one of the things that we learned actually as well from the Bitcoin white paper, that is not only about Bitcoin, which is you need to involve the community some other ways. And at the beginning, we were getting together not to talk about Bitcoin, but to plan projects, like community projects, like these cleaning campaigns and these painting campaigns, and we were doing that, and that's the way how try to get the community involved and convince them, because you cannot just go Bitcoin. And I think that they appreciated the way how we got to Berlin, because we got there with an idea. We talked to them about the idea, but it wasn't everything about that idea. We were there to be part of the town, see how we can help. And then people started to trust us. And that's pretty much how it started. But the Monday meetings at the beginning were to plan community activities. You obviously talk about Bitcoin anyways. I mean, you always find a way to, talk a little bit about Bitcoin, but that's how we introduce Bitcoin to the community.
Yeah. I love how, again, that parallels the Bitcoin Beach story, where it starts with community initiatives uplifting the town so the locals can see, like, you're not a scammer. You actually are here. You're here because you believe in Bitcoin, but because it's good for the world, and you want things that are good for the world, good for the community. So, yeah, I remember hearing about, like, the painting the Central Park, like, the main square. And so some of the first people, I think Rams and Nikki and James and Charlie were all there by that point.
They were the first 4 Bitcoiners. We had
Rams was the first. Then...
He actually moved before us, because we were living in San Miguel. We were already working in Berlin. We had decided that Berlin was going to be the place, but we didn't find a house. And Rams actually found a house before us, like a couple of weeks before us. And so he was the first Bitcoiner, and then Evelyn and I, we moved to Berlin. And then Nikki and James came, and then Charlie came, and then I think you were like the next one after them. Like,
yeah, it was definitely in the first 10. It was pretty soon after that.
Yeah, the first 21, like they say.
The first 20.
It was fun those early days. It was like this exciting new project. And so that's where things like the circular economy white paper come in. You're doing the work. I'm not fluent enough in Spanish that I was onboarding the merchants, but I was, going around supporting, trying to show up to the Monday meetings. And you guys were having good turnout pretty consistently. So it was like people like Irma, Pee-wee, Don Julio is a big one. Yeah. And then students as well. And so then things just kept growing and growing. When I showed up, I think you guys already had around like 50,
Yeah, no, it
60
was
merchants
crazy.
onboarded, something like that. And within just the next few months, it grew to I think 130, something like that.
Yeah.
So how did you get from, what do you think were the factors with that kind of taking off?
We had a good timing, I think. We had a good timing, and a lot of Bitcoiners were coming to El Salvador, trying to explore the Bitcoin country, and adoption wasn't as good as expected. So people were looking for places where to spend Bitcoin, and there was El Zonte, Bitcoin Beach, and then there was Berlin. Back then, now we have different communities like in El Salvador, but back then it was just the two of us. And there were a lot of Bitcoiners coming. So people started to see that not only the community, but the Bitcoiners that were coming to the town. And I think the reason why it has been successful in Berlin is because we're teaching how Bitcoin can be useful to you. Like that's what people see right at the beginning, right? How Bitcoin is being useful to me. The people in Berlin, they don't have bank systems. They don't even accept credit cards. Most of the businesses, everything is cash. There's complications on you only using cash because you cannot send money around. And people saw an opportunity when they started to see all the Bitcoiners and the meetups and this education that was coming to the town. So they saw it as something useful. I think that's why they have adopted it.
Mm. Yeah, and it was good timing, like just coming out of the bear market too. And then also I think adopting Bitcoin 2023 was a big one as kind of like Berlin's like main, grand entrance onto the big stage, so to speak.
Yeah, we always said it, like the first time we put a foot in Berlin, Bitcoin was 23K. 23,000 was one Bitcoin the first time that we got to Berlin. Now it went over 100. We've been working on the bull market. Yeah. We're gonna see now how it's gonna go. It's pretty sure it's gonna be fun, but yeah, good timing.
Yeah, it worked out really well. And so then adopting, kind of took things to the next level of really shining a spotlight on the project because it was, 6 months old by that project, 60 some merchants already. Yeah. And then I know personally, I co-organized with Charlie Economy of Bitcoin, April 2024. It's just kind of an excuse to bring more people after, so many people flying in to El Salvador for the halving party, and Bitcoin Beach and Big Sean Harris are very supportive of like bringing people over. So events like that, those are good occasions for people to come check it out. But at this point, people are coming year round. Lots of people have heard about Berlin. And so
I think it helps a lot. Sorry. No, so Adopting Bitcoin was November. I think we did a podcast with Mike on October, I think maybe a month before, a few weeks before Adopting Bitcoin. And a lot of people saw that podcast. So that also helped to bring people to Berlin because people knew the project because of that podcast we did.
Yeah, definitely. I actually first heard about it on the Bitcoin Beach podcast as well.
I love that. I love that.
It was the episode with Nikki and James.
Okay.
So I heard about it, and then Charlie came down from Berlin for the farmers market in El Zonte right after that, and then he was telling me about Berlin. I was like, okay, I need to come check this place out. And I just loved the project and loved the cooler climate up in the mountains, getting to see a different part of the country, beautiful views out there, and coffee country, and just really the vibes, you guys, and just the community there. Yeah. And so that's why I stuck around. But I first heard about it on this podcast. Yeah. And that's also why I think it's important to do kind of the updated version of the story is, new people have discovered the Bitcoin Beach podcast since then.
A lot of Bitcoiners that had come to Berlin have mentioned, like, I saw you on the Bitcoin Beach podcast. Like Tim, for example, he mentioned first time I heard about Berlin was at the Bitcoin Beach podcast, and then Tim is a legend now in Berlin. It's like those things, like small actions that you don't know how it's gonna go. Yeah. So yeah.
R.I.P. Tim, great man, in his older years, but he's actually buried in Berlin, which I just find so beautiful. Like the family he was staying with welcomed him into their family too. And that's actually one of the things I find so interesting about Berlin is a lot of the times with expats, you'll see these kind of expat enclaves, but they don't really integrate with the community at all.
Right.
But in Berlin, there has been a lot more integration. So how do you see like kind of do you think it's the Bitcoin Center and just the constant activities there, or what do you think is kind of the factor?
I think that we have been blessed with the people that have come to the team and to the project and to stay in Berlin, because we have had really good ambassadors for the project. There's a lot of people that know, yeah, you're one of them. And there's a lot of people that knows about Berlin because there's people out there talking about the project, inviting people to come to Berlin. And then the community. So you guys were mentioning earlier about the importance of the community, and that's where the community meets Bitcoin and and Bitcoin meets the community. I don't think that Bitcoin itself will thrive in a circular economy without that, without the community. And so I think that we have been lucky about being Salvadorians and that Bitcoin was a legal tender, bull market, the people that have come to Berlin, and then the people from Berlin that it's welcoming all the foreigners that come to Berlin because they see the good intentions, that people try to get involved, that it's not just like a regular tourist that will come and just have fun and party. They try to get involved and they see that they want to help improve. And there's people giving scholarships. I remember that the first ones that we got, it was from Steve. And so we gave some English scholarships, and now some of them, they are working with Steve. So it is people trying to help Berlin. So I think, and everybody, I mean, people in Berlin, they wanted to have a change in the city. So Bitcoin was part of that, what has changed there.
Yeah, and it's probably worth mentioning a little bit the history of Berlin. So founded by a German immigrant, late 1800s, just shipwrecked and fell in love with the place. And part of why he settled there is because it's coffee country. It's one of, El Salvador is one of the best coffee countries in the entire world. Berlin is one of the best parts of El Salvador for growing coffee. And so I think it probably helped a little bit that there was that history of working together with internationals. But then also just Alegria. I think the dynamic there with the neighboring town, they have the tourists coming up from San Miguel, your home. And Berlin is this agricultural hub next to it. But, that's where people are doing the real work. It's the working man's town next to it. And for growing an economy and adding the Bitcoin economy to it, I think it just kind of plugged in naturally there. Right. So
Alegria will make so much sense. Like, that's what we thought at the beginning. Before Berlin, we considered Alegria because it's small. It's smaller than Berlin. It might be a quarter of Berlin or something like that. And it has all these businesses around the park. You don't need to walk to onboard them. Like, you just cross the street and you have them all there. But they didn't want Bitcoin back then. We were facing with a lot of employees instead of owners. Family or business owners, and people don't care. Like, what you mean Bitcoin is going to bring me tourism? We already have tourism. And they just didn't care.
Yeah. But Berlin, it's that's another point from Berlin. It's that a lot of people, I think that like here in El Zonte, there's a lot of family-owned businesses like Mama Rosa, right? Yeah. That you get to talk to the owner, and that's easier because they are the ones making the decisions.
Yeah, it really helps when you are actually speaking with the decision makers. And I really think that's part of why Berlin has succeeded for so long is just the community of locals and also being started by Salvadoreños. That's part of why I found it so inspiring in the first place too, is like Bitcoin Beach set the example, right? That so many people around the world are following. But how does it grow? How do we take things to the next level? And that's where you need places like Berlin popping up. And you guys have also started a new one, La Laguna. We're going to get into that at the end. But okay, I was just going to say, so you've got the Monday meetings for anybody who wants to visit Berlin. Those happen every meeting with the locals at the Bitcoin Center. Yeah. You guys also have the classes, English and Spanish, the conversation clubs on Wednesdays.
Wednesdays, 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And we have the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin Center in Berlin is having a lot of activity. I mean, that's the whole goal. That's what we do. One of the things we do. How can we make this place useful for the community? So that's why we came up with, these conversational clubs and Monday meetings. Local high school students coming to do homeworks there. We had a guy that went from high school to university this year. And he when we were coming here, he was there with some friends doing some homework. So people they use the Bitcoin Center.
Yeah. Whenever I'm in town, I still always do my work from there too. Right. Like, it's a great co-working space as well.
Yeah, the podcast and people come and go. They use the ATM, and now there's the place where you meet. Like, where do we meet? You know, could people meet for the stuff? Let's meet at the Bitcoin Center, and people just do that. So yeah, we're happy. You know, it's working for the community.
Yeah,
Perfect.
and then the one of the projects that we also did this year that going back to what you were saying, that focusing on educating the next generation, it's key for the project and for the country to change, basically, because you're educating the next generation, the next people that it's going to be leading the country, next business owners, and they will already know about Bitcoin. So this year we started this program in the local high school. This is the third year in a row that we are educating the local high school, which is around 500 students. And so we wanted to do more, and not only the intro class. So what we decided to do and came up with, it was with this idea of doing a Bitcoin university. So kids can know more about Bitcoin, but only people that wanted to know, because you're educating 500 students, but out of those 500, how many of them like really want to go deeper? So we sent them a form. It was Forte from Cuba and Daniel from My First Bitcoin that joined me to for the classes. So we sent them a form, and all the kids that were interested, they fill up the form, and then we scheduled the first classes, and we ended up with 21 students. And so now they know about self-custody, because we went through history of money, Austrian economics, Lightning, on-chain, nodes, and a lot of things that even I had to learn to teach them. It was really cool, because when you're teaching, you need to learn to teach. And for me, it was a challenge. And then we got some people that also came to give some lectures. And so this year, I think that a lot of them already know how to have a node, how to run a node. And the mindset that they have changed from how they started. And if you listen to them now, it's like totally different.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easier with young people, like the mind switch.
Yeah, and so but I want to say thank you to Mike, because whenever we have come to Bitcoin Beach for help, they have always been there, and he basically helped us with this Bitcoin University project. So thank you so much, because
we're
a
just
lot of kids.
More of all the circular economies
Yeah.
Bitcoin Beach is supporting. So yeah.
And yeah, so all these kids, I mean, the mind that they had in the beginning has changed, and they want to continue teaching. Now they are asking, how can we get involved? How can I teach? I want to teach the next year.
I love that. Love that.
Yeah.
So-
It's beautiful to just see the snowball effects of how these things build on each other. And also, it's funny, earlier you mentioned how a lot of these very well-known Bitcoin commentators, flew in from around the world, and they'd been longtime Bitcoiners talking to hundreds of thousands of people about Bitcoin, and they'd never done a Lightning transaction before. Here in Berlin, El Salvador, you have kids who know how to run Lightning nodes.
Right.
I'm just saying, El Salvador is doing things on another level, and just the snowball effect from, start the little project that upended the monetary order. It's like people are living in the future.
Yeah.
Kids are living in the future, running nodes in Berlin. Yeah. So I just think that's so beautiful. And that's why I really wanted to highlight this. And also, it's exciting. There's a lot of FUD about El Salvador and the IMF deal, and is it still Bitcoin country? But people have not stopped using Bitcoin as everyday money here.
It's so funny, because the only people interested in that are people that are mostly outside El Salvador, and like the actual average Salvadoran, they don't even know about any of that. Like, that's not what they're focused on. And I feel like Bitcoin adoption is higher than ever right now.
Yeah, and if you check BTC Map, the number of merchants has gone up.
Yeah.
The number in Berlin has gone up.
Number of communities.
Number of communities has gone up, and that segues perfectly.
And not just accepting, but like wanting or preferring a lot of them now to be paid in Bitcoin. It's been amazing to see how the skepticism to like, becoming fervent like Bitcoiners has
Yeah.
come.
Yeah, actually, there's a great example in Berlin. Forgetting her name, the lady Juice on the corner.
Elsie.
Yeah,
Elsie.
yeah. You want to tell a little bit about like
Maybe Gerardo. He discovered that.
So this lady never came to the Bitcoin Center, but she likes Bitcoin because she's always working, right? And she started to accept payments in Bitcoin. She started to see how the value of the sats were growing, and then she wanted more. And every time that we go there, or at least when I go there and I ask for some juice or some fruit or whatever, she overcharged me. So because she knows I'm gonna pay with Bitcoin, she overcharged me. I pay in Bitcoin, then she gives me my fruit plus some other coins in fiat. Because she's buying Bitcoin that way. So and she keeps stacking. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go every time, to
And
get
she's
something
like,
there.
I want to buy.
it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really is a powerful vehicle for spreading adoption to all these other people. And she's hodling, she's spending. So
Yeah.
many of the people in Berlin, not just hodling, not just accepting and cashing out right away. Many are hodling. They're reinvesting in their businesses. They're even spending with each other, right?
Yeah.
In some cases.
Yeah, that's what people do most, like spending. We're kind of like, we would love everyone to be like Elsie, stacking. That's the kind of, we need to figure out how to convince or make people to understand that you need to stack Bitcoin. It's not only about using it. Like you say, there's people that give talks to 1,000 people and they never use Lightning. Here in Berlin, it's the other way around. People do use Lightning, but they barely keep it sometimes. So yeah, we need to figure out how to make people save in Bitcoin. But there's a few already doing it.
But I think that's one of the great thing about Bitcoin is when people start using it, then they start realizing the opportunity cost.
Right.
And so that's why I always tell people, like, if you want more Bitcoin, move to a Bitcoin standard because you will
Right.
decrease your overall spending because you'll really think about it. Are you willing to part with your sats for this? And if it's for food or something that you need, then yeah, you should do it. If it's something that, it's not, the goal isn't to just die with a bunch of Bitcoin like hoarded. It's a tool to be used, but you do start to understand the compounding effect of saving in Bitcoin. And so,
Yeah, like this lady, I'm pretty sure that because again, she doesn't go to the Bitcoin Center. She knows about Bitcoin on her own by being exposed to Bitcoin. Like she started by downloading a wallet and getting the first payment, and then she started to stack a little bit more, asking questions, and that's how she learned. And everything started because of that one first transaction she did. She was just being exposed to Bitcoin. I mean, that's the approach that we've been taking in Berlin. Like, just have people exposed to Bitcoin. It doesn't matter the wallet. I mean, it doesn't matter whatever. One transaction is all they need. And then they go from there.
Yep, and just seeing it constantly, like the Bitcoin Center is in Google Maps. Berlin, like Bitcoin is literally on the map there. People walk by the center. There, Bitcoin accepted here signs everywhere.
Yeah.
And the approach that has been working in Berlin for almost 3 years now, you guys decided to replicate it now. So there is this new project. We mentioned earlier. So La Laguna,
Yeah.
I'm representing it. Gerardo and I, we didn't coordinate wearing the same
felt the same.
T-shirts. But yeah, I just recently visited a couple weeks ago. And
Yeah.
It's really cool. So could you tell us a little bit about that project?
Yeah, so I mean, we would love to see a Bitcoinized country. I mean, that will be the goal for us. Like, this keeps growing. I'm sure right now it looks really far away, but it's again, snowball effect. Like right now it's the beginning. Eventually it's gonna get easier and easier. So we want to do our part. We've been working in Berlin. Now we're working on this other front in the north side of the country, in Chalatenango, in a small town called La Laguna. And we see in Berlin, I think that we have learned quite a lot from what we've done. I mean, we've made a lot of mistakes on the past almost 3 years. And I think we have knowledge to try to replicate it. Like, we feel like we can do it. So we've been feeling that way for quite some time now. And we started to see what will be a good place to try to replicate what we learned in Berlin. And we've been traveling around the country, we got to this place, beautiful mountain town. It's really small when you've seen it. Quiet town, really clean, people, friendly people. And
Beautiful mountain views. Yeah.
beautiful mountain views, a lot of water, like waterfalls, and
Yeah,
and
that's one of the
nature
things.
around.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I find most interesting about it is it's like high up in the mountains, but you have these great waterfalls.
Right, just
It-
coming from the mountain, yeah.
Yeah, and it's smaller than Berlin. It's more around the size of El Zonte, probably about.
Maybe, yeah, because it's
Yeah.
about 2,000 inhabitants. So I think
Yeah,
you
okay.
said
Yeah, even a little
three.
smaller. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So-
no,
Here.
El Zonte is around 3,000. Berlin, I've seen estimates anywhere from like 11,000 to 25,000,
Yeah.
but kind of in the general area, probably more like 25,000, 10,000 the town proper.
10,000 the town, yeah, the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, La Laguna, it's just like Berlin. It has the urban area and the rural area, right? Berlin, urban and rural area, it's 25,000 or something like that. I think just in the city, it's just about 10,000. So in La Laguna, it's the same. But most people is in the rural areas. There might be 8,000 people living in the outside of the town. Within the town, it might be 2,000. So small town, small city, they have stuff like hotels, they have car to rent, they have gyms, they have cyber cafes, they have food, they have different stuff.
Yeah, they have great coffee up there, just
They
like
have
Berlin.
they have good quality coffee there too.
And I remember you guys were telling me, so you guys had this idea to start a second project, and you were riding around Chalatenango. You knew you wanted somewhere still in the mountains. 'Cause,
Right.
some people prefer the beach, some people prefer mountains. It's great to have both.
Yeah.
So you guys kind of had this rough area in mind. And
Yeah.
Why did you settle on La Laguna? What's the story there?
We visited because it's a whole mountain range, the whole border with Honduras. There's a bunch of towns there and communities, and we visited. No, we couldn't visit like all of them. Like we visited a few, and we pretty much were looking for a place like Berlin, or at least try to replicate. Because maybe within 3 years that we want to do a third one. We will go outside of what we know, but at least now we needed to like spread the seeds on fertile land. We cannot so that's why we want to like really choose the place. When we got there, it was pretty much the same we had in Berlin. You see that meeting over there? That was like I think it was the second time we visited La Laguna. First time we went there, we started walking around the town, no invitation, no nothing. We started to talk to local people. We met this lady, Sule from La Laguna.
She's great.
She's great. She's selling coffee in La Laguna, and she has a coffee plantation and everything. So we told her, this is what we did in Berlin. It's funny because we were saying in Berlin, look what they did in El Zonte. Let's do it here in Berlin. And now we're going to La Laguna saying, look what we did in La Laguna in Berlin, and look what they've done in El Zonte. It's getting easier. So they liked the idea. This lady, we told her, the best way to communicate to people, the idea of this project is to sit everyone on one room. That way we can communicate to them. And she was like, yeah, no problem. Boom, 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 boom. 20 calls, 25 calls after, we had that meeting over there.
There were more people.
And because she was like, there's these guys, look at their social, and she was sending the link and then calling them. So they want to talk to us about a project here in La Laguna. And all of those are business owners or, there was people from the municipality there in that meeting. And all of a sudden, the second visit we did in La Laguna, we had this meeting. And everyone there was, by the end of the meeting, with a Bitcoin wallet installed, and we told them about Berlin and Bitcoin Beach, and they're like, yeah, let's do it. So that's the kind of thing that pushed you to, all right, this is the place, Second time we had all those people listening about Bitcoin. So that's why we choose La Laguna.
Yeah. And again, I just really want to emphasize the patterns here, because part of the goal of this episode is to kind of inspire more circular economies and show people, the story and what's worked. So again, it was community. It was a local leader who was really integrated, knew the other business leaders, and it started small. That's something I know you've emphasized many times is, especially if you're living in a big city, you don't try to orange pill everybody. You start with one street, you start with one merchant, you build relationships, and then that kind of just fast tracks in, and it helps when you have proof of work, like you were saying.
Well,
too.
and this is a perfect example of what we've always pushed is you want to start small so that you actually show that it works. But then when you can go and you have the example of El Zonte, you have the example of Berlin, for them to, on the second meeting, to have all those people show up, that was very different than when we were starting in El Zonte. Like, it took a long time to get to that point. And so the further this goes along, it gets easier and easier because people have already heard of it. They've already heard of the successes of it. They kind of understand Bitcoin. And so it just becomes easier and easier as you kind of ripple out. So that's what I always tell people. It's like throwing a pebble in a pond and then let it ripple out. Don't try to take the whole pond at first. Just take that little part. And once, if you can make a splash there, then you can have an impact, on the whole country and the whole world.
The pond ripple expands into a tidal wave that you can surf all the way from Bitcoin Beach to the mountains up in Berlin and La Laguna. And so you guys started the circular economy. So you started with the meeting with the merchants. You created a Bitcoin center. I think we showed the picture already. And then recently, so last month I came and visited for this. It was merchants. Could you explain a little bit about the merchant organization?
So we had this meeting. We had the people interested. But you need to keep it moving. So next thing we did after that meeting was to have for Mother's Day, May the 10th, here in El Salvador, we did an event, a small festival in the same park. And we did some contests, some singing contests. We gave a prize on sats, and we told all the people, let's start with this, We're going to try to bring Bitcoiners, people that are going to spend sats within the town. We're going to bring the team from Berlin. We're going to be here as well. Let's start with this one project. And they did like it because some people show up on Mother's Day, and the few sats are being injected to the town, So what's next? Because you got to keep it all right, so we're going to open the Bitcoin Center now in La Laguna, which you visited. We try to keep it open, and people come and go just like in Berlin, like at the beginning, people come curious. I have some Bitcoin on my Chivo wallet since, ages. Can I, make it cash here? That's the first things that people come and ask. And now we have conversations with the local high school. We're going to give classes next year in the local high school as well, just like we did in Berlin. We're going to try to give a few scholarships there as well. And, Bitcoin adoption, make more excuses so Bitcoiners can come to inject more Bitcoin. And the one thing that we want to focus here in La Laguna is remittances. You saw the beautiful houses there, like small town, but beautiful town.
Yeah, there are some stunning houses with these beautiful balcony views, just the different sight lines with all these gorgeous mountain backdrops. And you mentioned, a lot of it is remittances. And I just want to emphasize the biggest merchant in town is also one that you've already orange-pilled, and that is the hardware store, which I just love. People are physically building there. So you can inject, the sats come into the town, and it's you can physically see the results.
There's no better business to have there in La Laguna than a hardware store, because everyone is building, everyone's doing stuff. And that's a lot because of remittances, it's people, Salvadorians sending money from the United States and other countries, and we want to teach people how you can save money, and it's easier. You can save on fees, and it's easier to receive Bitcoin remittances with Bitcoin. So if there's a place, I'm probably sure there's some other places, but this is a good place where we can actually do that, because there's a lot of money coming in remittances. So we want that to be Bitcoin and people start using it.
Yeah, I've heard that was one of the big reasons why Bitcoin took off in El Salvador in the first place, is a huge percentage of the income for people is remittances. So Western Union, they used to have to not only travel on a bus hours away, wait in line, and then also potentially be robbed by gangs leaving, but there were also just the higher fees. It's slower, it's more expensive, it's more risky. But Bitcoin,
but it has, I will say it is that potential was always there. wow, this is amazing, this is the perfect thing. But the uptake of people actually using it for remittances has been slower than we had kind of hoped. So I love what you guys are doing of trying to focus on that, because I still believe that once people the problem is people are creatures of habit, and
Right.
they just want to do it the same way, and so they're like, oh, I don't have to learn all this. So if you can get them to realize how much easier it is, then that kind of ripples out to everybody else, because then they show their friend, oh, why are you still doing it that way? Like, you should just use Bitcoin. So I love that you guys are doing that.
The remittances place in Berlin and in La Laguna, it's always busy. Like they always have a line of people waiting to get their remittances. So Bitcoin, there's an opportunity there to teach people how to receive with Bitcoin.
Yeah, the same in Berlin. We because they closed the bank, they move it and they've removed the ATM, the Chivo ATM. So we got all the people that was receiving the remittances basically from anywhere with Chivo. They are now coming to the center. So
Yeah.
and so that's a big opportunity for us, because we are talking to people and telling them, hey, you don't need to change the money to cash. You can go to these places and spend the Bitcoin from your wallet. So that's a really good opportunity that we're having also in Berlin.
Yeah, it definitely benefits Berlin having both the remittances, people earning sats and spending with each other, and also expats, international Bitcoiners flying in just to experience the circular economy. So it's good to have sats flowing in from these different sources.
Well, and the great thing too, when you have expats come in, that you have a lot of them that are living on a Bitcoin standard, and so they're doing all their expenses in Bitcoin, so they're continually injecting into the communities.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and speaking of living full time on a Bitcoin standard and injecting sats into the communities and the Bitcoin economy. So in Berlin, that's where Charlie was right after Rams, and right there with Nikki and James is one of the first to move to Berlin. I came soon after, and after we all went to Adopting Bitcoin 2023, you guys had the great talk and brought all of us on stage. It's like, we should do a mini version of this in Berlin. So we first did it after the halving party, and then we just did round 2 as part of Bitcoin month after Bitcoin Historico and Adopting Bitcoin this November 25. And this was a ton of fun. So 2 days, we had about like 50 different panelists across the 2 days. First day all in English. Second day pretty much all in Spanish. And so we had circular economy leaders from throughout Latin America, one even from Africa. We had Mike and Chimbera there. It was actually Mike's birthday. Gave him a cake and sang happy birthday and everything. But
embarrassed me on stage there.
Well, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for coming again. I think it's fitting that celebrating the birthday at a conference, celebrating circular economies in a circular economy. And so it was people from different circular economies. We were highlighting kind of the pillars as Charlie and I see them for a circular economy to succeed. So it was community, education, technology, and entrepreneurship kind of all coming together. So just kind of events give people an excuse to come visit.
So what do you think all that people did after that? They went to the town and to spend sats. Like that's what we need. The people using Bitcoin and these kind of events, they really help, because you might these merchants might receive a few transactions a week. All of a sudden on a weekend they're receiving a bunch of them, and they see that, and it really helps for the whole Bitcoin, familiarity with people.
And that's exactly the goal, is just kind of like you see this year-round steady stream of Bitcoiners coming through Berlin, but then just kind of having these big events where it's just this big influx, and all of the hotels are sold out and everybody's paying in Bitcoin. Can only get into the conference with Bitcoin, and then everybody goes out into the town across the 2 days and just spending with all the different
Bitcoin.
merchants.
So,
this is a lot of fun. And so speaking of circular economies, we had Luthando from Bitcoin Akazi come to Economia, but then just a couple weeks later, the Bitcoin Beach team flew out to Africa. So could you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah. So one of our big focuses is supporting all these other projects around the world. And so one of the things we're doing is we've put it on these summits where we bring a number of projects together for a few days. We do, intense workshops. We can share what's working in, one community. Then they can say, wow, they're doing that there. We should adopt that in this community. We also bring in speakers of different tools, whether it's wallet developers, educational, people that have education material, a bunch of different things, and just to expose them to all these different tools. And we did the first one in El Zonte last year, and it was amazing. We had, I think, like 15 projects that came in for it. Did you guys come for that?
Yeah,
you guys
yeah.
did, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were here.
I'm trying to remember, but I was pretty sure you guys were there. So it was just amazing to see, and the friendships and the relationships developed from there, and just how much they learned. The people left from here and, went back, and their projects exploded because they were just like so excited. They had all these new ideas. But one of the challenges we ran into was getting project leaders from Africa, because a lot of the passports they have are so weak. They have such restrictions on being able to travel. It wasn't just we could get the visas for El Salvador, but it was the countries they had to like pass through, they couldn't get the travel visas for. And so this year we decided we would actually go to Africa to do that, specifically with the projects in Africa. And so the African Bitcoin Conference, which is a conference that's been going on for a few years, this year they were having it in Mauritius, which happens to be a visa-free for almost all of Africa like place. And so we said, okay, this is perfect. We'll go there. We can bring all these people together. They can attend the African Bitcoin Conference, and then after we'll have our summit. We had the summit, and it was amazing. We had a bunch of different people like from the space come in and be speakers. We also had the new president of the African Bitcoin Conference. She attended, and she's actually agreed to come to the summit we're doing here in El Zonte again in just a few, I guess, couple weeks here. We'll be putting that on. So that's amazing to see just how it's growing, how this network of circular Bitcoin economies around the world is growing. The summit that we're doing in a couple weeks here, I think we have 25 projects. So from pretty much every continent, I think, except for Antarctica, we're going to have people here. So yeah, it's going to be the 27th through the 29th. And I think on the 29th, it's going to be open. Last year, we had it open to everybody. So as long as we can accommodate that again, we're going to open it up to Bitcoiners that are here that want to come participate. And it's right before the Plan B conference. So if you're planning to come for Plan B, just come early, hang out at the beautiful beach in El Zonte, and then come participate in this on the 29th.
Yeah, and as general advice for anybody flying to El Salvador for any of these big events, always plan to stay at least 1 week before or after, or really, ideally at least 1 week on either side, just to get the full El Salvador experience.
It might, just correction, it might be the 28th that we're having the open day. So just come early. Make sure you come early and spend the week in El Zonte, and you'll make sure you won't miss it.
Yeah, never hurts to be in El Zonte. Yeah, it's beautiful here. You can always just swim in the Pacific Ocean, especially if you live somewhere cold. Like, why not take a break, take a little vacation to Bitcoin paradise? But yeah, I also love how these events, they are important for people to come together, share what's working with each other. One of my favorite bits of feedback after Economy of Bitcoin this year was how many Spanish-speaking Bitcoiners were there. And these technical Bitcoiners from various Latin American countries didn't really have anybody back home that they could talk about Bitcoin at a high level with in their native language. And so just being able to bring people together like that, and you never know what can come out of these types of events. And
we like that about Plan B last year, or like this year. Yeah, last year.
Yeah.
The whole Spanish and English stage.
Which they're going to do again. They're going to
Yeah.
have the whole
Cool.
Spanish, the paso.
People mention
Yeah.
that there's way more girls on Spanish, the Spanish side of the conference than on the English side.
That,
And
you know
it's
what?
true.
That's funny you say that. I didn't think about that time, but that's true. There were a lot of women there,
Women,
and
yeah.
not so much on the English side.
Yeah, because
so.
I was going back and forward, and yeah, it was different.
interesting.
Yeah, but it was cool. I like it. Last year it was really nice, the whole conference.
That is really cool. Yeah, and it's also funny that you, Evelyn, as the woman, were the one who got into Bitcoin before.
Yeah, I heard
Gerardo.
that. It's always the other way around, I heard. Like,
He's a wise man because he listened to me.
Right.
Yeah, very smart. Yeah.
Now look at me,
Love it.
Yeah,
And also shout out to like Pam Sisters of Satoshi. There are actually a lot of great Salvadoreñas who are
Yeah.
stepping up with Bitcoin initiatives.
There's a bunch of
Yeah, we need to
Salvadorians,
take
yes.
a guys meetings like they do, because they girl brunch and girl this and girls
because
that.
because
We're
every
starting to do, like,
because every
for the
Bitcoin
boys,
meetup it's a guys meeting.
yeah,
Normally, yeah. But shout out to all the women in Bitcoin, and they played a big role in both Bitcoin Berlin and La Laguna. It was Sule and La Laguna,
Sur La Laguna.
And-
Yeah,
and
there's
then-
girls involved there.
Yeah.
Patty in Berlin.
Patti, Irma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so shout out to like the women stepping up, and especially like with the communities there, it can make such a difference. So yeah, and also you guys mentioned Plan B. So before Plan B, we've got the Circular Economy Summit.
Yeah.
And then after Plan B, we're also going to be doing some stuff in Berlin.
Yeah.
So
So we know there's gonna be people, Bitcoiners visiting El Salvador, and a lot of them they like to go and see Berlin either for the first time or coming back. And back in November we did Economia. Now the plan this for February, we're planning from February the 2nd to February the 4th. So it's gonna be 3 days. You can come early or on the second day. And we're gonna have events planned around Berlin. We want Bitcoiners to see, as much as they can from Berlin, because even though it's a small town, there's a lot to see. And there's some really nice places, some really good businesses that we will love them to visit. So it's not gonna be a conference, although there's gonna be a few solo talks and panels, but it's spread around the businesses in Berlin. So we're gonna have maybe 4 or 5 locations and it's gonna be scheduled within the 3 days. So, this time by lunch or by dinner, we're going to have, Bitcoiners are going to gather here. There's going to be this panel happening. You might listen to the panel and then, it's a Bitcoin meetup. And we're going to do a few of those within those 3 days. I don't know if you want to say what we've been planning as well besides this.
yeah, I'm very, very excited about this. We are also planning a Bitcoin Circular Economy soccer tournament. And I'm so excited for this. Just like one of the things I love about living in Berlin is you've got that court in the cage right by the Mirador for like 5-a-side. And it's something that, soccer is called the world's game for a reason. It's a universal language. And you step in on the court, it got competitive when we were playing the other day. We played like 3 hours a couple weeks ago. It was just
I got sore for like
Can
2
you
weeks
believe
after
it?
that.
We were just waiting for them, like, when is this going to end outside? And they were like, change.
Until
like,
one accepts defeat, like if no one says something,
we played
it's still
like
on.
3 back-to-back games too. It started out 3-on-3, then 4-on-4, then 5-on-5.
Right.
So the point is, a lot of Berlin SS and a lot of Bitcoiners from around the world all love soccer. And we realized this could be a great reason.
You gotta call it football. I mean, come on.
Football,
yeah,
Football.
Or the Italians would say calcio, but torneo de football.
Torneo de football. Yeah, not football here in Salvador is football.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be fun. We tried to do it in November, and we were really, unlucky.
Yeah. We had everybody there. We were all getting warmed up, and then it started pouring.
And it started raining. We tried to play for like 10, 15 minutes. No, it's not possible.
Yeah, but we
someone's
had
gonna
people,
get hurt. And,
Yeah.
So
we had people from Isla Paraya, come up the Circular Economy project that you mentioned earlier, and it's one of the ones that Bitcoin Beach helped launch. And so they're coming. Santa Ana community is bringing a team. Bitcoin Beach might be bringing a team. San Salvador is working on a team. The kind of San Blas Club Cacao area is working on a team. So we have and La Crypta.
La Crypta was
Argentina.
there back in November, and we
Bitcoin
couldn't do
Coast.
it.
Yeah.
Bitcoin Coast.
Yep.
Bitcoin Coast.
So we definitely have at least 4 teams guaranteed. We're probably gonna have 8 teams, and so knockout tournament. So that'll be at least the first 2 days as part of the event. Yeah. And it's 3 full days of activity though. That's right next to the main square, and kind of the idea is an immersive Bitcoin Berlin experience, not just another conference. Right. We're still going to do Economia again in November, and that'll just be an annual thing. And if anybody wants to sponsor that, the big fancy stage doesn't pay for itself. So, feel free to reach out if you want to sponsor that. It's a great event, 200 people. But, we're not going to do that every single time. And people don't want a conference every single time. You can have different types of experiences.
Yeah.
So
it's just that, like this place we're seeing right there, that's where we're planning to end the 3 days. That's an amazing view. What you see down there is Berlin. That's the whole city. And then, like I was telling you, you have the surroundings. You have this green area, which is not the city, but there's still a lot of people living around. But you get to see the whole Berlin. You have that amazing view. and we're gonna end on the 4th, on the last day. A nice gathering in that place, and along with the football tournament. So yeah, it's gonna be a busy 3 days in Berlin. Just come to Berlin. There's gonna be activities spread around the town. You're gonna have the opportunity to explore, to see the nature. We'll have some walking, hiking tours.
Yeah, I was just about to mention. So we went to this just a couple weeks ago, and you were telling me on the way up that the coffee, the finca right next to it, I think you said all of the Starbucks locations in El Salvador get their coffee from that place in Berlin.
So it's crazy. You cannot access. I mean, I haven't been lucky. I haven't been able to access that place, but it's crazy operations they have on coffee. And yeah, they export coffee outside El Salvador, and they provide as well to, or at least those are the rumors, that they provide to all the Starbucks in El Salvador.
Yeah, so there's very high quality coffee. And Harry, also a British Bitcoiner who has been living in Berlin full time. I'm sure he'll do finca tours.
Yeah.
So you can see all the different merchants and get the different, like the full Bitcoin Berlin experience.
Yeah.
So
like Berlin is big. Like between the volcano and these guys, like halfway through it's still Berlin probably. It's a lot to see, and nature and stuff that people don't get to see when they come usually to Berlin. So we're gonna present the opportunity to them so they can visit now.
Yep, it's going to be an amazing experience. Can't miss that, February 2nd through 4th. And I know it is past Mike's bedtime, so we should start winding
way
down.
past my bedtime.
So I would like to just close out by saying you are also, the Bitcoin Beach is starting 14 new circular economies. Would you like to just briefly talk about like Punta Mango and just the different projects
so
there?
the goal is to make sure that there is one in each department. So we're not necessarily starting ourselves 14 with it. Obviously there's already one in Berlin there, which is in the Sultan department, right?
Sultan, yeah.
Yeah, and then we'll the new one in La Laguna, which is in Chalatenango. So there is, and then there's already one in I believe in Sonsonate, and in San Miguel. And so there is a lot of these that have already been started, but that is the goal, is to make sure there's at least one circular economy project in each department. Right. That was our goal to do. In this last year, we didn't quite accomplish all of them, so we're hoping by the end of 2016 that we'll have everything up and running.
Yeah, they've been doing meetings in meetups in Suchitoto, and what's the other place?
Chalchuapa.
Chalchuapa. We were talking with Freddie. I don't know. I mean, we're gonna do the tournament on February. I don't know. We can say it. Like we're planning. Maybe that can scale to a full tournament on circular economies. I was talking to Freddie and Brian.
Yeah, we've been talking about this with Luigi in Berlin as well. Right. About so this tournament, February 2nd and 3rd, it's going to make history. You can't miss it, because this could grow into a circular economy soccer league with just kind of an excuse for the circular economies to visit each other.
And these Chalchuapa and Suchitoto meetups they do can be synchronized with the football match. More people coming, I'm pretty sure whenever Berlin, has to play in Chalchuapa or Suchitoto, it's not going to be just the play. It's going to be like Berlin coming on a bus, to support like the team. And that's going to help to all these meetups. Mm-hmm. So I think football, like you said, is, it's really popular in El Salvador. That's another way to, get Bitcoin there.
Yep, bring people together. And yeah, if you never want to be, fair warning, you never want to play goalkeeper against this guy. Really good striker.
Rusty,
so stay tuned for all that. Very exciting things to come. People who are spreading FUD about Bitcoin, about El Salvador. Oh, it isn't money. Bitcoin is dead. Oh, IMF, whatever. Come visit, see for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
We got all these new circular economies popping up. Berlin's still going strong. Bitcoin Beach still going strong, inspiring and supporting projects around the world, and things are just getting started. Only up from here.
Yeah, thank you all the people that have stay and still fight and build in the country. As a Salvadorian, you really appreciate that. The people that bet for your country. Definitely.
Yeah, and I think that the IMF stuff, it was just a push for us to keep working and work harder than ever.
It's going to be easy. Now this is the kind of thing that you expect, and you got to work around it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the medium of exchange adoption was always going to be grassroots anyway, and the grassroots is still building.
Yeah.
So come see for yourself, and especially if you're in El Salvador for Plan B anyway, come early. El Zonte, we got the Circular Economy Summit. And then afterwards in Berlin, actually the day right after February 1st, there will be a festival here. And then Monday, February 2nd through Wednesday, February 4th. Come on up to Berlin. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And then, I don't know, Paco, if you can throw the picture of Punta Mongo, but if you're in the country, the east in the beaches are some of the most beautiful. They have the whole Surf City 2 initiative. They're really pushing on that end of the country. So this is beautiful Punta Mongo. We actually just opened a Bitcoin-focused boutique hotel there. So you can go to the website, stay at Bitcoin Beach, and you can kind of see some of the options. We're building something here in El Zonte too. So we want to have a couple of hotels. There's lots of great hotels in places that accept Bitcoin already, but we want to have some that are really like focused on Bitcoin. So check out the website, stay at Bitcoin Beach. This is my favorite place. If my wife would let me, we would move actually here. I mean, I love El Zonte, but Punta Mongo, I mean, it's like another level there. So.
It is so beautiful.
Yeah.
One of the most beautiful places I've ever been.
There's a lot of on that side of the country. There's a lot of places like this that haven't been discovered. I mean, people know them, but not as much as they know El Zonte or
no,
Tulpe.
it's not very developed yet.
Right.
It's still like has that
Hidden
magical
gems.
like.
It's a hidden gem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. Well, and the highway wasn't ready yet, and they're building the airport there. So there's going to be a lot more activity. And one of the things I think, one of the many reasons I love Berlin is it is kind of the bridge to the eastern half of the country as well.
Yeah.
So also it's faster to get from Berlin to Punta Mongo than it is to get from Berlin to El Zonte.
Yeah.
And
You can make a stop in Berlin and then continue after.
Yeah, right before Economia, we all went down. It was just a little day trip.
So sorry. What's this? Is this La Unión or San Miguel? Or
No, Sulutan, I think.
It's technically a Sultan, but just like
In the border.
I think like 100 yards or something, like is the line, and then it would be San Miguel. So.
Just missed it. Guess you still need another circular economy there.
Yeah, so we got a lot in the Sultan because we got Berlin, we got La Paraya, we got Punta Mongo.
Right.
So, but Punta Mongo kind of stretches along that whole beach area there, and the rest of it is San Miguel. So I think we got that covered too. So
Love it.
Cool.
Yeah, and I know we're trying to wind out. One last thing I just remembered. So the first time each of you guys met Mike, one was at Punta Mongo, the other was at Isla Paraya, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I met my first time, we shake hands. It was the Punta Mango
Hope House.
Opening.
there.
Yeah.
yeah, you guys broke down coming there and had to turn around,
that's
come
another
back,
story,
and but you still made it.
We made it like really
love that
late.
you guys still made it.
We were committed.
we swapped the car. And
We had to swap cars and keep going, and then
Yeah, and then we met in La Paraya.
Yeah, we first met. Then we ride these carretas with the bulls.
Yeah.
So that was the first time that I met Mike. It was really awesome. Even for me as a Salvadorian, that trip was
that was
amazing.
a different experience for sure.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, and all these different places and all these different events at these different places, giving people a reason to meet each other. And then, from that meeting, like you mentioned earlier, Mike and Bitcoin Beach have supported so many of the other projects. So anytime you get a chance to come to one of these events, you never know what could happen. So yeah, the next few weeks, if you're in town for Plan B, that's January 30th and 31st. Come on to El Zonte for the Circular Economy Summit and just for the general vibes, the surfing, vacation. And then coming up to Berlin afterward for the full immersive experience, including the Torneo de Football. Any final thoughts?
That's good.
Yeah.
Cool. Time to go to bed.
Fair enough.
Maybe everyone that is watching, if they want to support circular economies, because there's a lot of work behind it. Spend sats, just go and spend sats. That's the best way for
spend your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Oh, and so actually very, very final, just to close it out. So you can keep up with Bitcoin Berlin. You guys have a YouTube page. You have Bitcoin Berlin SV on X. It's Bitcoin Beach on X. I'm Jethro Toro on X. You've got the Bitcoin Beach podcast, and you may also be watching this on the Bitcoin Country podcast, but if you're watching it on the Bitcoin Beach one, subscribe on Rumble, Bitcoin Country. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us, and it was amazing. There's always something that I learned from the podcast and from Bitcoin Beach. So it's still, I'm still learning, and that's great.
Okay, wait. I know I said that I have to go to bed, but pass that book over to
Oh,
me real quick,
yes.
because we've got to make sure we mention this. So you guys have put this thing together for businesses to actually onboard them, because that's a big challenge for the businesses. You have somebody go and they explain everything to them, and then they leave and they're like, wait, how did we do this? How we did? So tell us a little bit about this book and what it's being used for.
Yeah, so the idea of this one, it is after the experience that we had in Berlin, like people always come and ask you the questions after you explain to them how to use a wallet, or the first time that you onboard people, you explained a lot of things that of course they will not remember. And so we came up with the idea on having kind of that explanation in a lot of the frequently asked questions that we get from people in one book. And this is basically explaining the way, or a simple way, those answers for them, where to, if they need to withdraw money, where to cash it, how to transfer money from one wallet to another one, how to pay, how to use different wallets, how to save. There's a lot of questions that they ask. So that's the purpose, that to be a support for the merchant, but also for you that you're working on a circular economy. So whenever you get the questions, you give these to people. And there's also going to be some videos online. So if people don't want to read, they will also have the explanation in a video.
Yeah.
So it's easy for the owners to send the videos or to give the staff this book so they can know how to use different wallets or how to assist the customers.
Yeah, I'm so glad you guys wrote this book, and I love how it's not just theory. This is in the real world from two people who have built one of the world-leading circular economies. Is like, what have you encountered in the real world? These are the questions people have.
Yeah,
and it's going to be in both English and Spanish?
Yeah, so right now we hope to have it ready for Plan B, or for before Plan B, because we're making some updates based on feedback that we received. And then, we are going to give away some copies, and it's going to be open source for anybody who wants to use it for their circular economy and make any changes. It's going to be open source. And so that's the idea, to be helpful for people.
Perfect. Well, I love how earlier you said never stop learning, and there are so many resources out there now for anybody who wants to build a circular economy. You don't have to do what Bitcoin Beach did, being the first one, having to invent these things that nobody had ever even dreamed of. It's like the proven model exists. So just look at what works. Don't feel afraid to reach out. There are all these different circular economy projects. If you're in El Salvador, you can meet a lot of them with the Circular Economy Summit. A lot will be in town. So come say hi. Feel free to reach out online. And long live Bitcoin as a medium of exchange.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Thank you
Buenas
so
noches.
much.
Buenas noches.